It's 2022, and guess what? There are 5 Fridays in July. So, time to round out a whole month of looking at wood as a natural dye source. Hi, this is Margaret Byrd, and welcome back to Color Quest. If you've been following along the past month, we have been looking at some pretty remarkable wood dyes and having an amazing array of colors and expanding that palette through different techniques and through shifts. Now, I have saved all of the wood shavings from the past month and want to use them today in an echo print. So go back, check out some of those videos, grab some wood shavings, and join me today as we create some beautiful designs using wood. Four woods that we worked on this month are Sappanwood, Osage orange, madder root, not exactly a tree, but a woody substance. And then last week we looked at logwood. Now, all of them provided really beautifully vibrant colors in our various dye projects that we worked on. And we were able to expand that palette through color shifting using pH, alkaline acidic shifts, as well as iron. So we really had an array of colors. Now, one of the things I love about using these wood shavings of these different trees and roots is that the color is so intense and really hangs on inside of the dye matter itself. And so we can continue to use these wood shavings many, many times. And as you saw with the Osage and the logwood, we even pulled together our dye by doing a series of exhaust baths where we heated the same chips several times and then combined all those into one dye. Now, that has a lot of dye potential going on if that's how you're extracting color. And being able to then use those chips either to make another exhaust dye pot in the future or for what we're going to do today is super cool, and I love it. Repurposing or just using something to the full extent of what it's willing to share is just near and dear to my heart. So I want to take a look at some of these shavings with you, and then let's go make some kind of an echo print with them. So here are the shavings, and I have them in order as what we use. So here's Sappanwood. This was Sappanwood that's been drying for a little bit longer, and then this Sappanwood is still actually damp. It's because it sat in my dye pot for a while and I didn't get around to taking it out to dry out. So I have both wet and dry. And then this is the Osage, lots and lots of Osage there. And then in here we have the two last ones. We have madder root as well as the logwood, and the logwood is still wet as well. I only just recently pulled it out, and I just got some Osage in there. Oh well, no problem, because we're going to be putting them all together in one design. Let's go. Now, I've been trying to decide how I wanted to use these, and I think today, what I'm going to do is some kind of a combination of a very loosely designed mandala, maybe, not sure how that'll work with wood chips, and I'll try it on 2 different pieces of fibers, and that is because I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I know it's going to work, but I thought it might be fun to try 2 different designs on 2 different fibers and see what comes. Now, we have a couple different ways we could do this, but I am choosing to do it today as a bundle dye. And that is probably the simplest way to do an echo print without having to have all kinds of things like dowels and string and maybe a bigger pot for you to be able to steam them. This is super simple because we're going to actually just roll it in on itself and tightly bind it with something that most houses have, and that is rubber bands. Now, with any kind of bundle dyeing or steam dyeing, echo printing, the tightness of how it is wound is pretty important. I have had video or two here. If you look back about a year ago, 2021, I did a flower bundle dye, very simple process with fresh flowers, and we're going to do something similar to that, but today with the wood. So I'm pretty sure you know what I'm going to say next, and that is preparing the fiber. So first you need to decide what kind of fiber you're going to use. In this instance, I'm going to be using 2 different kinds of cotton. The second is, depending upon the fiber, you're going to want to think about what kind of pre-treatment you should do in terms of a mordant. So the 2 pieces I have here are both cotton, and I've treated them the same way, and that is with an aluminum acetate mordant. I'm not going to walk through the steps. There's definitely resources for you on the Color Quest library. Now, I do have a playlist that I've started. It's called Mordants. So you might want to go there and watch those videos to see which one of the different kinds of mordants you might want to try. And in the end, if you A, can't mordant for whatever reason, or B, can only access something like soy milk, which is a great binding option, that's okay too. Give it a try. Mordants are a metal salt that attracts the dye molecules. So the dye attaches to the mordant and the mordant attaches to your fiber. So by doing a mordant, you are going to have a longer lasting and more successful dye result. But not the end of the world if you don't do it. Just know that natural color fades, it changes, it's living, it's breathing, and I celebrate the many lives of the colors that I make here and love actually watching them change. But prepping your fiber for something like this, if you create this incredible design, you may want to see it stick around. And you'll see today the 2 pieces of fiber I'm using, one of which is a piece of clothing for a baby. So probably you're going to be washing that. And then a mordant is going to allow that design to stay around longer through washes as well. So let's look at those 2 pieces of fiber. I am going to be designing something on a baby's bodysuit, as well as these light cotton, I believe they're sold as napkins. I use them here in Color Quest all the time. I know you're very familiar with them. So both of these have had an aluminum acetate pre-treatment. We'll probably want to start with a fairly flat canvas, and what I mean by that is we should iron this out so it's smooth, just so that we want to make some kind of a more defined design, we're working on a flat surface. So let's iron those. I've never been very good at ironing, but I'm not that worried about it. I just wanted to have it to be a little bit smoother, so when I'm putting it together, it's just easy to see where I'm going, and I don't have to worry about any big creases or something that might disrupt the design. Although I am going for a very loose design. You can take this super tight or as loose as you want. I am experimenting just as much as you are. And so I will try 2 different things here. Now, I always tell you that you have to wet your fiber before you put it into a dye pot. In today's video, I'm not going to be wetting the fiber. I am going to be putting the chips and roots down dry, only because I know they're pretty potent and I want to see if I can get a more crisp print. If I'm putting this down on wet fiber, it could already start bleeding into the fiber, and I want the steam to do that work today. Let's start designing our prints. All right, one more time. This is Sappanwood, and this brings about pinkish fuchsia sort of colors. This is Osage orange. This brings about yellow. And then we have madder, which is sort of reddish orange, and then logwood, which is purple. So I'm going to be thinking about this rainbow of colors as I design it and see what I can do to play around with the colors and the tones. So you might want to get ideas of different ways to make designs. Mandalas can be really free flow. They can also be really tight in their designs. And since the baby's bodysuit's so small, I think I'm actually going to go with more of a sort of tie-dye swirl and see what comes of that. And then maybe hold a more traditional mandala style on the bigger piece of fiber. So let's do the baby bodysuit first. Swirl. Here we come. So here's my design. I did not think too much about it. I decided that since these were straight lines, maybe those will create a design element that's a little more firm, and then got really loose with some of these other colors. So it's kind of a swirl, but not really. We'll see how it turns out. Know that anywhere that these bits go is going to be colorful. So, and then of course it's going to bleed a little bit, but let's wrap this one up first before we design the other one. Now with these, you have a couple different choices. If you just decided to roll it up and bundle it and put it into the steam, obviously it's going to print back on itself. Already, since I didn't put any barrier between the front and the back, I'm going to get a ghost print of the same design on the back of the bodysuit. But I want to try to maintain it, if I can, in order for it to stay in one place. So I'm going to have to put a barrier on the top. Now I have used butcher paper in the past, I've used parchment paper, but really I have found the tightest fit is always a piece of plastic. Now I reuse plastic, so when I get packages in the mail that have some kind of a plastic coating that don't have writing on it, I'll keep that plastic and then I'll use it in my echo printing. You can see that being used across several of my echo printing videos, and it's just a way of making it nice and tight. This is one way to do it. So let's bundle it up. All right, one design down. I realized that because I had the madder root and the longer sticks, I couldn't actually do a snail bind, which I'm not that worried about. But if you were to do this with something that was softer, or if you didn't use the madder root in this instance, you could roll this in on itself to make a nice snail, and that just makes it a little bit tighter. But this will be fine for what we're doing today. Yeah, and I'm using rubber bands because they're just easy and you can get them pretty tight. You can also use string, and the real key to all of this is just making sure that it's really, really tight so that the fiber is pressed hard against the dye matter and has a better chance of transferring its color and shape onto the fiber itself. Remember, tight binding, that really is the trick tighter the better. So I think with this one, I'm going to try something slightly different, and that is that I'm going to use a mirror image by creating a design on just half of the fiber and then folding the piece of fiber over the top. So I will be getting a duplicate image on both sides, and then I'll put plastic over the top of that. So let's try doing a mirror print as just something different. I am so much more a free form artist, a little bit more organic, a little bit more abstract. Making tighter designs is really hard for me. So I put something together, we'll see how it works. We're gonna go ahead and fold over the top piece and bind it up. So here's what I've designed. Please don't laugh. I am going to fold it over here. So I will get a ghost print here. And I believe that as I bind it up, it will probably move some. So I don't think it's going to be super tight at all. But let's see what we get. Why not? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And this is supposed to be fun. So just play around. Let the natural materials speak to you. So you probably noticed that I rolled that one in almost like a fan shape at the diagonal, and that was because I was trying to keep the madder root pieces straight. So I definitely chose a little bit more complex thing to try to bundle, but you know, whatever. Learn from what I did. Take it, leave it, doesn't really matter. You can take madder root and chop it up into smaller pieces. You can also get madder root already ground into a finer powder, so you don't have to use the root. I'm kind of curious to see how it's going to turn out, but I had to do it that way if I wanted to try to keep the sticks of the roots as straight as possible. Who knows what happened when I rolled it up though. Okay, everything has now been bound with the rubber bands, and I'm keeping them in that straight format, and that really has to do with the fact of what I put inside and the madder root. So if you had super soft things, you really can make that spiral bind that you've seen in other videos here, and it just makes it that much tighter. But I think it's going to be fine because the potency of these wood chips is pretty strong. So I know it's going to make some kind of pattern in there. Let's put them into a steam bath and see what comes out. So 20 minutes in the steam, and just taking off some of the pieces to see what I got. It's gonna be pretty light design. I think maybe I could have gone a little bit longer. Could have had a little bit deeper color, but I'm gonna save all of these so that I can use them again. Let's take the rest of these off and we'll see what we got. So I've never actually used exhaust chips in this fashion before, so I was a bit surprised actually with the Osage and how faint the yellow came through, particularly since it's such a strong dye. However, I do know that there is a big difference between doing an echo print using steam versus actually submerging your fiber into water. There are many different ways, obviously, to echo dye, echo print, and steam is a sort of cleaner, crisper way because you can invite the print relatively quickly, depending upon what the dye source is, and can sometimes get very crisp outlines and actual prints of, for example, flowers. Now, the chips obviously are harder, and I'm thinking that 20 minutes of steam might not have been enough. And you're always welcome to change that number. So play around with how much time you put something in to steam. With fresh flowers, it can be really short, like 10 minutes. And with something that is more dense, like these wood chips, you may need a longer time. Now, the other way you can do this is by submerging the bundle into water itself, hot water, and working it that way. Now, the benefits to that is that in this instance, I think having that water is going to invite the dye to come more quickly. However, the drawbacks, and you might like this, is that it should create more of a watercolor effect, and the dyes are going to blend into the water itself, and so you can actually end up dyeing your fiber. So if you want a really crisp print, steam is your friend. If you want something a little bit more watercolory and spreading out more like a tie-dye, then submerging in water is perhaps the way to go. So I want to try it to look at the difference between the print that I get with steam versus the print that I get with a submersion. So let's make another one and put it into a dye pot filled with water. I am so excited that I tried that. This is where curiosity takes you. You just keep trying again and again and again. But wow, those results are like night and day with exactly the same dye matter. So let's take a look at each one, talk a little bit about it. I loved how the baby bodysuit turned out. It is not particularly dark, but I think the design with the little flecks of color here and there is super sweet, and I just really like it. I think that it worked well with steam. Maybe I could have steamed, 30 minutes and I would have gotten a little bit more vivid colors, or maybe not, I don't know. But I'm really happy with that. Now, when I pulled this one out, I was surprised, again, as I mentioned, that there was very little yellow. The Osage barely came through. And I just don't think I gave it enough steam, and probably could have left it in, again, 30 minutes or longer. But it's pretty. It's crisp. You do have the sharper edges, and it's fun. I like it. But I was, like I said, surprised with how the colors weren't stronger. But look at that logwood, still pretty much, and the sappanwood. And then I really like how the madder roots spread out. You can also see this is the one that I folded in half, and you can see how you have a mirror image. And it did a pretty good job of being close on both sides, or similar on both sides. Because I can see some yellow in here, and I really can't see much yellow in here, I'm gonna guess that this is the side that I actually put the dye matter. But it did a pretty uniform job of creating a mirror image on the other side. So pretty good. Now, here is the piece that I submerged in water. And wow, okay, how different is that? Now the design was slightly different, but really all of the dyes heavily came out, and then they spread, right? That's what's gonna happen when it's in water. It's just gonna do that because all of the fiber is wet and it's gonna migrate. But I think it turned out really pretty, and also just so different. I mean, look at that. Let me put them next to each other. Look at that. Same dye material, steam, 20 minutes, submerged in water, 20 minutes. Very different effect, both equally as fun, and definitely worth trying both out. Echo printing. By the way, some people have pointed out that they say eco printing and that somehow I'm saying it wrong. But you know what? Tomato, tomato, right? So I'm gonna keep on saying echo printing. Anyway, echo printing. It's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of cool things with it. It's not something I typically bring into my own practice, but I am starting to become more interested in pattern or finding ways to create designs, not necessarily hard designs, but more organic designs on fiber so that I can incorporate that into my own work. However, it is by far the top viewed videos on Color Quest. All of my echo printing videos are really popular, and I think it's just something that is so universal across different cultures and different ages. Fantastic stuff to do with kids, and I think because of all of that, I'm going to do another one. Plus, I'd love now to see the difference between using the exhaust chips versus doing something similar in an echo print, but with the chips in their full strength. So join me next week as we do one more echo print, comparing exhaust versus full strength chips from different woods. I want to also try a kind of a different design and see. So I hope you will grab yourself some of those chips, either to do dyes in the dye pot or to join me as we look at how to use them in an echo print. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Friday. Oops. So you might want to get ideas of different ways